Glamorous Network.
Welcome back. We're here with Anita Noelle Green, and we were going to get into a little bit of a story here. I'd like to find out, again, you just said a few minutes ago that while you were in Montana, during your earlier time of transition, you wanted to be seen as a woman. And when I asked you how you identify, I said, I'm a transgender woman.
Yes.
That's the difference. How did you get there, and what is that story about?
So for me, I was afraid that people would just see the trans part and get hung up on that. And that was something that I was very afraid of, because that would have taken away from my identity. But now I think that I have evolved as a person, and I also think that society has evolved to the point where people can accept transgender women as women.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, it was just so hard for me to, I don't have a problem being transgender now. At the time, it was difficult for me. In my mind, I was just...
So there's still a little bit deeper that we can get here.
Sure.
So while you were in Montana, you wanted to be seen as a woman, and you didn't, and this was your story. I want to be seen as a woman. People are going to get hung up on the fact on transgender, and it sounds like your experiences with the men that you met fell in line with that. They got hung up on the trans part and couldn't move past that? Am I...
Well, I am not really that interested in men who specifically seek out transgender women. I just wanted to be with a man that could accept the fact that I am transgender and saw me as no different than any other woman. Well, I mean, of course, I'm going to be a little bit better than them.
Hashtag trans girl magic. But at the time, now you're speaking, the way I feel you're speaking is from the now point.
Yes.
I want you to speak a little bit from the then point and the experiences that you were having that aligned with the stories that you were telling.
Well, it was dangerous. Well, I transitioned at 18. Mm-hmm. I'm 28 now. It's very, very different now.
Mm-hmm.
People were being attacked just for being transgender. And I was scared about being open about that. But even when I ran for public office, that was very brave for me to do, because
absolutely,
I felt like we still were just starting to break out and make headlines in mainstream media. It was very, very rare to see a transgender person make headlines
mm-hmm.
in mainstream media. And so when I ran for public office, that was something that was very difficult for me. And I actually really took offense to when people would introduce me as, or describe me as, a transgender woman, because it was just kind of, in my mind, it was like, why can't you just see me
highlighting
as...
an insignificant point.
Right. And I still feel as though it's not... that's not all that I'm about.
Absolutely.
Though my gender identity is very important to me, because I have been able to really open a lot of minds and create wonderful communities. As a streamer, I'm able to do that with my line of work.
So here on the Trans Amorous Network, we talk about stories, and stories are your beliefs and the things that you tell yourself. And a lot of times those things that you tell yourself are what you've been told to think and believe.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Where are your stories? Give me a little bit more on your stories of the last 10 years and how you have gotten from the scary, maybe not safe situations that you were in to the healthy relationship that you're now in. Does that make sense? Like, mm-hmm. there's some things that you had to tell yourself to alter, to change about what you once believed to what you now believe, finding somebody who accepts you as you are and sees you as the woman that you are and accepts the fact that you just happen to be a transgendered woman?
Well, for me, I think that it's easy to live a quiet life, but I was not born to live a quiet life.
Not like me.
I thought that life would be much more interesting if I took risks, and I took big risks. I really put myself out there, and I'm so glad that I did. And it was when I decided to really take a big risk and really put myself out there, really put myself out in the public spotlight, that life ended up being more unique than it is for.
What's the belief that you had behind that I'm gonna take a big risk, and it panned out in the positive, as opposed to saying I'm gonna take this? Do you see what I'm trying to say? So we can get in our mind that we're gonna take this big leap and we're gonna take this huge risk, and behind that, you can believe it's gonna succeed, and you're gonna accomplish amazing things through this risk, or you're gonna take this risk and it's gonna go really bad, and everyone's gonna see, and everyone's gonna hate you, and all these violent things are gonna happen to you. It sounds to me as though you had a different story. You had a positive story behind that. I'm gonna take a big risk because I know something better's coming.
So that's actually very interesting that you mentioned that. I didn't know that something great would come out of taking all these risks, but I didn't want to live. It was about doing something more with my life. It was about doing something unique and something that was challenging, and that's why I decided to do these things. I mean, I was also the first openly transgender person to serve on the Associated Students of the University of Montana Senate.
The Associated Students of
the University of Montana.
University
Senate.
of Montana.
So basically the school college senate. That's basically what that was. And I think that to a lot of people that might have been very small, but to me that was big, and so I decided to take it even farther, and after that even farther and farther. And there was of course this feeling in the back of my mind that maybe I would fail, but I didn't want to focus on that. It was just about doing something different, something challenging.
So you didn't put your energies, you didn't put your focus on those little
on the doubts.
on the little naggy doubts. You didn't instead chose to take those risks and say, you know what? This one panned out, the next one's going to be great. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be awesome.
And actually, on that note, when I was elected as Montana's first openly transgender national delegate to a nominating convention, I know that's a mouthful.
Big things over here, baby.
I did end up really making a fool out of myself in the eyes of many people, because I did my job, I was elected, I was a delegate for Bernie Sanders, and I went and I cast my vote, but a lot of people used me as their political puppet. A lot of people wanted me to endorse Jill Stein versus Hillary Clinton, and vice versa. And that was very difficult for me to do, because I was all about Bernie. I wanted Bernie to be my president. I wanted him to win that nomination, and when he didn't, it was hard for me to know what to do, and so I ended up flip-flopping a lot. And I now have come to understand that that's not as big of a deal as people make it seem. It's okay to change your mind, and it was
say it again. It's okay to change your mind. It's
is.
okay to have a mind and think for yourself.
It is. I mean, I ended up initially thinking that I was going to vote for Hillary Clinton, and then I was like, okay, no, I'm running or bust. And then I there's so much I could talk about with this, and why I came to these flip-flopping conclusions.
But really, it's the story behind that, like who you voted for.
Well,
in the
so-
end,
well-
isn't important as you getting to being you, and through trial and error and flip flop and making choices and making new choices and re-editing those choices.
Well, when I did that, I mean, it, in the eyes of many people, it's just a complete faux pas to flip flop or change your mind. I mean, it was about an endorsement from. I mean, I was just a national delegate. I mean, who cares really what I have to say about that? Like who I think about, who I'm thinking about voting for president. I mean, I can change my mind as much as I want. And so that's where I kind of came, and I overcame this really big hardship. And a lot of people that I thought were my friends that were there to support me ended up turning their backs on me and saying very vicious things about me and to me, saying that I was a political flip-flop and I need to be consistent, and I should be ashamed of myself because I was doing that. But I really grew, and it was a huge learning experience,
and that's the point of it.
It is.
And that's the point of it. You grew and you learned from the experience.
I did, and what I learned is that you don't have friends in politics. You don't.
Right.
Just people that pretend to be your friend.
I'll take your word for it. I try to stay away from that.
Yeah, I hope you do take. Yeah. I hope you do. I don't want anybody to go through what I had to go through.
So, and again, all of those experiences have contributed to the woman you are right here, right now, and today.
Absolutely. I think that all those experiences have helped me to really gain a lot of compassion. If I didn't have that terrible flip-flop experience and being embarrassed in front of the public eye, because the media was all over my story. Every Montana media outlet was sure to interview me. And I felt as though at the time that I embarrassed myself publicly.
You felt at the time that you did.
Yes, but now I realize that it was just a learning experience, and I'm entitled to think however I want, and I'm allowed to change my mind as much as I want.
Boom. Yes, you are.
Yes.
I love it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So I want to get back.
I can tell you're not in politics. Yeah, we're just based on that, I can tell you.
I've got. I try to keep that quiet. It's my business.
Okay.
I want to get back to this amazing relationship that you're in, and that. So we've heard some of the stories, and they've come through as we've been talking. How did you meet this amazing man, and how are things going? And
Okay, well, I gotta give a big shout out to OkCupid. I think that they are absolutely wonderful. I really do. Hashtag not sponsored yet. So, no, I honestly
put that out there in the universe. Yeah. I like that. Mm-hmm.
I really love it because they are so progressive in the way that they have their dating site laid out, and I wanted to look for somebody who said that they were okay with dating a transgender person. There's actually a question on there that you can answer that says, are you okay with dating a transgender person? Could you date a transgender person? And so I did that, and I filtered through matches, and I looked for men that were okay with that. And I also was picky about, well, I mean, there's a lot more that goes into that, but that was something that was important to me. Of course, I don't want to be with somebody who says that they can't date somebody who's transgender. So.
Right. That's not going to work.
And yeah, there were a lot of people that said that they would not.
And that's okay. You know, you live your life, I'm going to live mine. You know?
Wow.
Different opinions. That's all.
Yeah, I have a different opinion on that.
I mean, you know, people say, oh, I could never be attracted to a transgender person. You can't say that for a fact because you can't You know, that whole possibility, like you don't always know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't always know. So there's no way that anyone can say that they would never be attracted to a trans person.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But like I was saying before, you know, before the show, is that we're special and we're different, and not everyone can handle that.
Well, that's true.
Not everyone can handle that.
But anyway, so I ended up meeting my partner, Phil, through that site, and I was very attracted to him. Obviously, yes, that one question was important, but that was something that was just one part. Like, he's super nerdy, and I love nerdy guys. Oh my God, I'm all about it. Geeks. Oh my God. I mean, I play video games for a living. Like, that's what I'm all about it.
Yeah.
And so that was very important to me. Dungeons and Dragons, he was into that. Oh God, my heart is palpitating.
Everyone's got a like.
Yes, absolutely.
That's awesome.
And so that was something that we really bonded on, and we just really hit it off. And
Right. So that one question of could you date a trans person was just, it was important to know
it was
if we
so
should.
minuscule into everything.
Right. It's so
everything.
minuscule, but in this, like, from what I would understand it, is that it's such a minuscule question, and then really, it's only as important as you make it, but why progress further if that question hasn't been answered in the way that I hope it to be, right? If you haven't said that you could date a trans person, then there's no point in even going any further. But that one question knocks off that, and you go, okay, well, what do you like, and who are you, right? That just brings down that narrow line. I got that. That's great. I like it. All right. Okay, Cupid. I think that might be a first for our show.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. No.
I think so. People have met many different ways, but that's awesome.
Online dating was the best way for me to go. I mean,
You spent a lot of time online.
well, there's that, and also, I mean, in some ways, it's kind of like shopping for clothes. If you don't like it, you can always return it, right?
Yes, I love you. So before you met this amazing guy, you had to have filtered through some non-keepers. Did you go on other dates? And you said you've dated before. How have those experiences prepared you for the relationship that you're in now? How have they helped you alter the stories you kept about relationships and about love and what's really important to you?
I'm a mistake learner. I have to make the mistakes myself in order to learn valuable life lessons.
Mm-hmm. That's where the
have a
wisdom
hard-
comes.
Yes, I have a very hard time living vicariously through others. So I think that I had some wonderful relationships over the years, and some not so wonderful relationships. I actually ended up meeting all of my boyfriends online, with the exception of one. And I didn't start dating until I was 21. I didn't go on my first date until I was 21.
Oh, wow.
That's when I ended up entering into my first relationship. I know I was a bit of a late bloomer, but
That's all right.
I also,
But you bloomed as yourself.
well, that's another thing. I was not comfortable dating at all because I didn't want people to see me as a boy or as a man or anything, and so I didn't date in high school because of that. Well, also I went to a conservative Catholic high school, and
Well, I've heard stories about those places, but we're not going to go there.
Well, the one that I went to in Montana was not
Montana
very
might be
accepting of,
Montana.
different people.
Different people.
Well, so when I moved to Missoula, I ended up going on dates, and I ended up entering into my first relationship at 21, and then I ended up meeting some other men that I was in relationships with, and I was in an abusive relationship for a while. It was it was actually my longest relationship that I was in. I was dating an alcoholic, and it was very difficult.
I've been there myself, sister, so I can relate.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, sorry for your experience. But again, it's made me the woman I am today. And
yes, I learned a lot.
Yes. I was just going to ask you, would you say you've learned more about yourself and love through the positive relationships or the negative ones, perceived negative?
I've learned a lot from both. I make mistakes all the time. And I think that because of those past experiences, because of those past relationships, I think that I'm able to have a healthy relationship now and be with somebody that I really love and I want to spend a long time with.
That's amazing. I know for myself personally, it was both, definitely. But it's the really hard relationships, I think, that for me personally, made me really look at what I want, what I don't want, what I'll put up with, and what I won't put up with. And it's created an amazing story for myself.
I would agree with that. I would.
Because there's, especially, and I'm sure you could probably agree with this, is after an abusive relationship, you really learn what you won't deal with and what people will and can do and what you won't allow them to do. And it makes for such a stronger individual. And being able to get away from that.
And I don't want to make it seem as though that I'm a victim in everything at all. I mean, I have made mistakes. I have said some really hurtful things. I think that it's important to acknowledge, and I want to say this, that if people say or do harmful things, it's important to acknowledge that, and I don't want people to think that they can't be better than that. I want to say that I have said some hurtful things in my life. I've done some hurtful things in my life, but as long as you acknowledge that and you learn from that and you grow from that and you try to better yourself, that's what really matters the most.
I couldn't agree more, and I think that's a perfect place for us to end. Thank you so much, Anita. It was such a pleasure. Thank you.
Ciao.